y'all, this is Fuchsia Moon. I just wanted to make a video about offerings. I know that when you are new to the practice, sometimes you're anxious to make sure that your offerings are perfect and that they're what your god and goddess would want. And I know that I myself was always worried that I was giving the wrong thing or that what I did would be somehow unintentionally disrespectful. And I just want to say, first off, don't be afraid. It's sort of like when you're giving a gift to a new friend and maybe the first gift you give them isn't exactly their taste, but they appreciate the gesture. And then as you get to know them more, you get to know what they like and you get to be able to give them things that they truly take joy in. And that's kind of how I think of it when it comes to giving offerings to gods and goddesses. There are some, general tips and ideas, but it's really something that's an intuitive process that you get better and better at as you go along. So don't be afraid to jump in. And I have here in front of me just some things that I would typically use as offerings to gods and goddesses. So basically, like, some things are more specific to one god or goddess versus another. So like, what I have here is some very basic things. Obviously a candle. Candles work for basically anyone. They're just a very nice way to acknowledge your god and goddess and to show them honor. One thing that is not you want to be careful of is setting things on fire. Obviously, I actually have a fire extinguisher, so in case something sets on fire, but you can't give these as an offering outside. So there's some other things that you can do outside. You can, but it's better to be out there for it, and sometimes it's hard to do with the wind. So this is really more of an inside offering for me. And then there's incense, which is kind of the other basic, typical one that you've got going on. This is Eternal Treasure incense. It's a beautiful Japanese incense. And I think it's Japanese, yes. And so this is another thing. I actually will burn these outside just if I make sure that there's no leaves around, dry leaves. You still want to be kind of careful. Okay, so some other things beyond those basics are fruit is a really good one. I have here an apple. There are some gods and goddesses who like specific fruit. Like if I was giving an offering to Dionysus, I would give some grapes, etc. And this is what I like to do, though, is especially if I'm giving these as an outside offering, is I'll cut them up just so that then the animals have an easier time eating them when they get to them. And that's something that I like to do, is offerings that can be consumed by nature naturally, because I feel that that is the deities taking them in their own way, so that's something that I really like about outside offerings. Here's a pumpkin. This is still left over from Samhain, and honestly, I'm probably going to cut this up and put it outside as well. So that's gourds, fruit, seeds or lentils or beans are another thing. These are some lentils. You can put those outside. You want to be careful with some things like rice, obviously, because birds will choke on it. So you might not want to use that as an outside offering. There's herbs you can use. This is catnip. So for example, this would be good if you're honoring Bast. She, is a cat goddess, and so that is kind of a specified offering for her. Other things, cigars. There's some gods that specifically love cigars. Elegua, I think, loves cigars. And so that can be something. You can smoke the cigar and then blow it onto the altar or the shrine or the representation, or you can just leave the cigar there, but that is just kind of something to give them. And then I have some other things. Tea. You can either make the tea and put the tea in a cup in front of the shrine, or you can take it out of the bags and make it an offering that way. And then salt is something that's just a very simple offering. Cinnamon, I do cinnamon offerings sometimes mixed with something else. Usually, here's some rum. There are gods and goddesses who like alcohol, and so that's a good thing to do. There are some traditions, like Centuria traditions, where you actually take the alcohol into your mouth and then you spit it onto the figure, and then that's kind of like you sharing it with them. But with that kind of thing, that's a little bit more specified, so you would want to look into that specifically for your god and goddess. And then the last thing I have here is moon water, and that's something, sometimes just a nice simple salt in one dish, moon water in another dish can be a nice simple offering. And so those are just some ideas, just some things to be careful of. Make sure that if you're going outside, this is kind of common sense, but don't leave anything out there that would be non-biodegradable. So if you are going outside, you might want to unwrap any candies, etc., that you're leaving, because you don't want to litter. That kind of goes against the whole idea. And make sure, like I said, that you have fire safety always, that if you're offering with candles and you leave the room, that they're in glass, and not to leave them outside with dried leaves, because I have inside almost like had a fire before and it was really bad. So yeah, and that's pretty much it. Just have fun and follow your intuition, and that's basically it. Until next time, blessed